Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. In this episode, I'd like to just try to give an overview of the events in King Saud University and my coming back to the UK, and put that in some sort of a timeline, if you like. When I first went to King Saud University, I found out very quickly that the Saudis in the central region of Saudi Arabia did not take easily to not only foreigners but also people outside of the area of Qasim, and that was not exactly a surprise, but something you live with, really. But one of the guys who worked for me also came in and was a little rude to me and told me not to mention his name, and I told him that I had a better opinion of you. You're educated in the States, and I would have thought that you would have checked your own information before making such comments. Get out of my office. 3 days later he came back and he said he checked the information, he was sorry, he apologized, and we became good friends. There was an assumption that if you moved from one university to another, that you'd been kicked out of the first university, and that was never the case in my own situation, as he found out. So that assumption was wrong, and when he checked it he realized that, and that's why he came back and apologized. From then I began to make a breakthrough in terms of communication with some of these people. But then I also found out there'd been other problems in the computer center which I hadn't been told about, and when I went to my boss and I mentioned it to him, he said, Daud, he said, there's two ways to do it. He said, I could have told you everything to start with, or you could find it out for yourself. I'll let you find it out for yourself. In one sense, that was fine, because if I'm mature enough to find it out for myself, I can handle it. If I'm force-fed something, then I'm going to handle it according to the way it comes over to me, and that might not be the best way. Anyway, alhamdulillah, everything worked out. By the time I left King Saud University, everyone working with me was a friend, and I say that with sincerity. We did get through to one another, ultimately. Yes, it was hard going, but we did get there, and we were working as a team, and people appreciated that. And alhamdulillah, it was actually fun to work with these people, because they were willing and they would try, and it was good to see them doing it. But I went in as a technical manager. There was a question over what my role was, where I fitted in, but when the head of the systems group left, he actually recommended I took over his group as well, although in actual fact he was in essence one step below me. When the head of the database group left, he recommended I took it over as well. And I told my boss no. So I didn't want to get involved into the technical detail, because I wasn't equipped for it and I had enough to do. So these were tributes, if you like, to what was going on between us, and in fact they really did very well, and they did pull their weight. The real crux of the matter was that as an expatriate we did have a team, and that team spirit was built up. One of the things I used to do when we put in any new hardware or software, I used to take the relevant group or groups to a restaurant, an Arab restaurant, and this was another way of building team spirit. And in one case, one day the operations supervisor in Daud, he arranged for the food down on the beach, and it brought kapsa. And he took the lid off the pot, one of the big pots, he lifted out this sheep's head, he put his fingers between the upper and lower jaws of the head and just pulled it apart. and he offered me the tongue and the brain. That was a culture shock for me. I politely declined, but I mean, you can see now that they're getting friendly, and this is exactly what happened. The first time in Riyadh, when I took them out to an Arabic restaurant, I paid. Any other time I could never pay, because they always were spoken to the guy in Arabic before I could get to him. And he wouldn't take any notice from me anyway. So, you know, it just shows that there was a willingness there. If only you could manipulate it, if only you could actually harness it and bring that sort of togetherness feeling and working together. And alhamdulillah, we did get that. And people were willing to try and do things, which was good. So the relationships developed very well. I took over the network group. I was a manager for that. And the network was the thing that was expanding more than anything. And as I said, we went from something like 1,000 terminals to 1,000 terminals plus, maybe 1,500 terminals plus 2,000 PCs by the time I left on the network. So the network had actually expanded enormously and was still going on more. But alhamdulillah, we were getting everything on board. Even the library was on board, and they had a CD-ROM stack which people could access through the network as well. So these things were developing quite well. And of course the GulfNet went to internet, and that was another step forward. So in this respect, things were doing well, and the university was doing well, and we got to the stage where we could, had they agreed to the proposals, put in ATM, and that would have solved all the problems. But they left, and I came back to this country, and in this country I had to struggle to decide what to do. Eventually I got into a Daud office, and then I actually developed a little Daud course. I wrote a handbook for that course, essentially, and then I got into the community. I tried to look at the youth, I tried to look at some of the problems for the youth and how to solve them. We got into a school, we also built up youth fellowship, tried to get the kids out of areas where they could be, where they could go wrong, and put them into a safe environment and get them trying to talk and be friendly with people of their own religion and their own way of thinking. And at the same time give them little talks, reminders of Islam. And alhamdulillah, this was working, and it's actually growing, so it seems as though there is some sort of benefit in the community. And I'm still in touch with the mosques. I still talk in the mosques from time to time. And in the future, what will I do? Well, I've got maybe 5 Dawa courses a year. I've also got more than one Dawa course lined up for communities or universities, and then there are other talks I can do as well. So inshallah, this is the future that I have. But I'm 76 years old. I'm trying to train people to take over from me, and I'll gradually withdraw into the background and let others take over. So with this in mind, I'd just like to read a small tribute which someone sent to me as a SMS on the demise of my wife. I pray Allah gives you strength through this difficult time. It's so beautiful the work you did together, and you both inspired us young ones to find partners with whom we could do dawah, alhamdulillah. You will be reunited with her in Jannah. You are in my du'as. Ameen. So that's a tribute to my wife, and I would like to dedicate this series to my wife's memory. And this is only one of many that have come in. There's some on Facebook, some on Twitter. So let me just end with, if there's any benefit in what I've said, it's from Allah. If there's any mistake, it's from me, for which I ask Allah to forgive me and each one of you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
My name is Noreen Salman, and I'm a family friend of Uncle and Auntie Daud and Anis Matthews. Alhamdulillah, my family is Muslim, and I was born into a Muslim family. But Auntie Anis and Uncle Daud had actually a great influence on me because of the way of their teaching, the humility that they showed, the kindness that they showed. Not that there's any kindness lacking in my family. Alhamdulillah, very nice practicing Muslim family. But the humility and the kindness, like small example, honestly, little thing. Me and Auntie speaking about something, and I just say, oh no Auntie, that's probably, I don't know, this or this. And Auntie, oh sorry, yes, you're right, this. And I would be really amazed. Somebody who's way older than me, in generations honestly, turning around and saying sorry to me. And that carried on till the last breath, I would say, to Auntie. Because that's what her humility was like, that's how down to earth she was. That she would apologize to anyone at any given time without even knowing if there was a fault that she made. The role of the preachers of Islam, in my view today, about Islam is like the example of Uncle Daud and Auntie Anis Matthews, is that they have to actually be exemplary themselves. They have to actually practice. And honestly, what I have learned is you have to actually first improve yourself. And the preachers actually need to show what they are like, what they preach, practice before they preach, and that would actually attract them, the youth today, the people today, Muslim youth in general really, because I believe, it's my own personal belief, that the previous generation are still following the same cultural Islam. I wouldn't say all of them, but some of them still do. And that needs to be separated from the actual Islam. And the youth today are ready to follow the actual Islam. They're ready to actually look at the true beauty of Islam.
My name is Anila Majid. I'm a family friend of Auntie Anise and Uncle Daud. I think with Auntie Anise it was the fact that she was Pakistani, she was fluent in English, fluent in Arabic, fluent in Urdu. She was funny, she could connect with the youth as well as the elderly. Likewise with Uncle Daud, I think the fact that, you know, being a white Muslim, being 6 foot tall and of that generation, it was just, just looking at them was pleasurable, let alone speaking to them, mashallah. It was nice to meet Muslims who had been educated at the top universities in England, who'd been around the world, who'd met all types of people, but were the most humble people that you would ever meet. Uncle Daud has no pompousness about him. Same with Auntie Anise, she was always laughing, always smiling, always able to crack a joke, but at the same time she was able to put her message through. They're very, very unique, and I think Auntie would be sadly missed.
My name is Fazal Karim Chowdhury. I'm actually work as an electrician, but I do a lot of dawah work as well, inshallah, in this community. I know him since 1996. Once I went to a conference in Islamic Foundation, Markfield, and that's why I've met him, and I've seen him like he was one of the co-workers, working as a dawah worker, doing a lot of dawah training and stuff. So we had a chat after the conference, and since then I met him because I needed somebody who can help me with the dawah work, because I was involved from 1995, which I started youth work. It's called Young Muslim Organization in Lahpura. So I needed some kind of help to promote the work of dawah in our community. So I was discussing with him how can we help, how can we need help and stuff, because he's been there a long time, working as in the dawah field. So Ato is like his best person to give me advice and stuff. First thing, he was convert Muslim, so that attracted me, and also I haven't met any other converts as like him in those time. Only a handful of people. I remember there was another brother was also convert, but he wasn't that much involved. But as brother Daud Mandi he was somebody like unique, I could tell, because and he was working in the Markfield Institute for a long time, and I used to visit quite a lot in Markfield, so I used to see him, but we never personally met him. But after the conference, somebody I think referred to me to contact brother Daud, and since then we had a long chat, inshallah, alhamdulillah, and he said, inshallah, I'll try to help you as much as I can. When I started the Young Muslim Organization in Lahpura, with the youth of Lahpura, we needed some kind of person who always inspire the youth, and as he's a convert Muslim, so he could give more to the community, because in our community not many people seen as he's outsider or as a Muslim, like he's white skin or Muslim, because it's always we see Muslims are natural Muslim. So I invited him on one of the our annual anniversary in 2004. Those time we invited our local councillors, local mayors, MPs, and other influential people like in our community, and we invited him. It was like he could, because there was Muslims and non-Muslims as well, so we thought like if we invite him, he can give proper dawah to non-Muslim as well. So alhamdulillah, since then he was like more involved in our community as well. So he gave really briefly and specific, like his talk was like really easy to understand as well, and he was telling us how he became Muslim and stuff. So he gave dawah about God and how God existed and all. So I remember still, we still got a video as well of him, and he gave the dawah of how God, what about God existing and stuff, and he gave dawah to non-Muslim as well same time. So it was really inspiring for everybody. I still remember in 2004 actually what happened.
My name is Miss Saima Hassan. I am a close friend of Auntie Anise and Uncle Daud. I met Auntie Anise and Uncle Daud through my father. My father works at the Islamic Foundation, and they were known to us as family friends, and always our parents' friends. Whilst I was at university, I got involved at the Islamic Society. In my second year of university, so it must have been 1995, 96, I was involved with Islamic Society and attended the study circles where Auntie Anise was teaching about Arabic and basics of Islam and so on. I think throughout your life you have different periods where certain things influence you. So at that time when I was at university, I was at a stage, I suppose, where I was wanting to, you're coming across lots of different types of people, perhaps those not so practicing, some more practicing, and I suppose learning more about different cultures and different people and different faiths as well. With Auntie Anise and Uncle Daud, when we initially met them, they were just ordinary people. They were just ordinary people living in a Western society, pluralistic society, and were just sharing the deen. And they were sharing it with the young as well as old, but primarily young people through university, and I think even younger as well, as far as my understanding is. And their bond as a couple, you had a British convert with a Pakistani woman, and we'd probably see it the other way around, but it was quite unique, their bond, and that crossed all barriers such as language, such as race, and the whole idea of Islam. Islam doesn't look at race, Islam doesn't look at language, Islam doesn't look at those things as barriers. And that was what I think probably was maybe appealing with Auntie Anise and Uncle Daud. Their bond that they had was very, very strong. It was very endearing, and the fact that they were elder to us, they were the same age as our parents, and the fact that they were very open with the youth. Yeah, that was a sort of part of their unique qualities, and just their acceptance, their openness to everybody and anybody, and that was a very special thing, because some people will come from backgrounds where they'll be judged because they don't wear a hijab, or they'll be judged because of a certain dress code that they have. But Auntie Anise and Uncle Daud were just very accepting and would just take people under their wings, and be very loving. They were very loving in their approach to deen and to telling people about Islam and just sharing their experience. And they were funny as well. I think Auntie Anise and Daud Uncle is an inspirational couple, an exceptional couple. I think I'd like to think, yes, it can be found, inshallah, in this day and age. But we do live in a time where there's a lot more issues, there are a lot more complications, a lot more certain sort of problems. But that that love for the deen, that simplicity of the deen. Inshallah, we hope with couples that does stay, and that is followed on, because there's so many people who are exposed to Auntie Nisa and Uncle Daud, and that inspiration enough should hopefully allow more people to do what they did in the manner that they did.
I mean, he was a very popular speaker to have at the Islamic Society events because of his personality type and his knowledge. And we went through a difficult time because you had to be very careful about who you invite over for an event, because Islam and Muslims was always under the spotlight. That's kind of why we kept inviting him over and over again, because he's a very, he can explain most things very simply, very in a straightforward manner, and if he doesn't know the answer to something, he'll say it out, and he'll say, I'll go and I'll look for it. So that's a very important quality in a speaker, especially someone speaking about a hot topic such as Islam. I mean, out of, I think, humbleness, and he would refuse to lead prayers or lead Jum'ah, even though we tried to ask him a number of times. And I think, again, he thinks that the priority should be given to first language speakers of Arabic, and that he hasn't got that knowledge yet. But to be honest, from people that I've come across at university, he is one of the most knowledgeable in the fiqh of things in Islam. So I see no reason why, but again, I respect his decision. I mean, it really helped me acclimatize to the UK when I came here in the year 2000. The Islamic Society is quite a big society at Loughborough. At one time we had about 200 members, and in Friday prayers, Eid prayers, we get 200 to 300 people attending. So there are a lot of Muslims on campus, and Muslim students, and the majority of them are international. So it was very important that the society cater to the needs of these students, by holding events. And I mean, another event I hadn't mentioned is Freshers Week, which take place at the Students' Union. And again, Daud Matthews contributed by training some of the students on how to respond to queries there. And again, we always found it's very helpful to have him around for these events, or at least have him able to train people just before the event. So it gives students a lot more confidence, because a lot of the people manning the stalls might be first-year students or second-year students. They're still, they haven't got that confidence of actually giving da'wah more publicly. So he really helped in that aspect. I mean, he basically seeks the truth, and that's what he's been doing since his very young days. That's how he came to Islam. I think he studied other religions and other ways of life, and eventually came willingly to Islam. So if someone seeks the truth early on and genuinely asks for it, then I think eventually they will find it. And I think he's been on that path ever since, and he's still, he sees himself as a very humble, very simple person. But as I say, his level of knowledge in terms of da'wah, in terms of dealing with people, is really next to none in terms of the people we've had here at university.